guys, welcome back to the Real Deal podcast. I'm Abby, and this is my co-host Avery. This is her debut on the Real Deal. She just joined, and this is my debut on the Real Deal podcast. So I'm a little nervous about that, but today we're talking about podcasting. So I thought I would bring Avery here because her and I just love to talk about podcasts.
This is gonna be so fun.
So, what you know about podcasts?
You know what? I'm gonna admit I'm not an avid podcast listener / watcher, but if I had to choose a form, I really like watching on YouTube, preferably Brittany Broski. If you've heard of her, she's our idol.
We love a visual podcast. We'll sit at home. We will just watch them, laugh and giggle along. I think we both prefer a funny podcast, a comedic podcast.
Right.
So we like the Broski Report by Brittany Broski. We like
The Bald and the Beautiful
Trixie Mattel and Katya.
Mm-hmm. I like Unfiltered with Zane and Heath. Mm-hmm. They were on Vine years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also really like true crime podcasts. Mm-hmm. We do have an episode about true crime on the podcast, so go check that out. But I really like them, but I feel like I go through a kick of true crime, and then I need to not ever watch it for like 3 years, and then I come back to it.
Well, because I get into my little true crime kicks, like you said, and then I get scared.
I get anxious.
And then I get this in my head, and I'm like, humans do this. I'm just like, okay, break.
I get nervous.
I need a break for my psyche.
Right.
For my mental health. I am a social work major. Mental health is a priority.
She's not a media major.
I'm not a media major. Just keep that in mind.
Just letting you know.
Right.
Yeah.
We're just so silly. I'm so sorry.
We were so silly. But yeah, true crime podcast, comedic podcast. I don't think listen to a lot of educational podcasts, but there are a lot.
I hate to admit, but they're kind of boring to me.
Come on, the ADHD runs rampant through my veins. Mm-hmm. I can't just sit and listen to someone teach me and then proceed to go to class.
Right.
That's not what I'm here to do.
Right.
I'm here to giggle. I mean,
if I'm gonna put something on in my free time, it has to be fun. It has to be entertaining. I mean, I do enjoy documentaries and stuff, but that gives me a visual aid as well. I feel like podcasts sometimes don't really give you that visual aid, so it's hard to pay attention per se.
Yes, I agree. So, podcast questions. Oh, I have an idea. Mm-hmm. If you were to host your own podcast, what would that entail? Go.
The most random things that I can come up with in my brain.
Right.
I think I'm a really big music and movie person, so we already do this at home. We study albums.
Yes.
Like Ethel Cain, Greta Van Fleet, just to name a couple. So I would do we could do a deep dive together.
Right.
I could have you on all the time.
Right.
Co-host.
Right.
And we would do a deep dive of albums, kind of covering how they make us feel, or movies.
Yeah.
So kind of a thorough analysis of film and music.
Yeah.
I think would be my ideal thing.
I like that a lot.
How about you?
I honestly don't know. I think I would, again, really enjoy, like you said, a deep dive. I really enjoy video essays on YouTube, and I think that format in a podcast is really cool to pick a topic super random, and just have a debrief on that topic. So how we do with albums, but just anything random. And in terms of by myself or with a host, I feel it would depend on what I was talking about.
Right.
If it was something that I knew about and I was really passionate about and I only wanted to talk about it, then I'd go by myself. Or if I had a friend that knew a lot more about the said topic than I did, then I would bring them on. But it would have to be a visual one as well.
Absolutely, and that's what I like about Brittany Broski is she and then multiple podcasters, but she records her own all of her podcasts. But what I like about her is it's just so random. She comes in to her podcasting set, sits down, and speaks what's on her mind. She speaks about things that are sitting on her spirit. I think her most recent title was Chernobyl and Wattpad lore. So stuff like that.
Yeah.
I love that, and I'm a big fan of background noise. So I'll just put her on and I'll do my homework, do whatever. Maybe I'll get distracted, start watching. So again, anything goes. I like randomness when it comes to podcasts.
Which, speaking of Anything Goes by Emma Chamberlain.
Oh my God.
One of my favorite podcasts
Perfectly
of all time.
way that was planned.
We scripted that. But yes. I love Emma Chamberlain as a person. Parasocial relationships are bad, but that's my best friend. Emma Chamberlain's my best friend.
Well, if they're bad, then put me in jail, realistically.
Arrest me. I love her so much, and I love what she does with podcasts because it's random yet organized at the same time. Like she's like, I'm gonna talk about whatever I want, and maybe I'll have a guest on, maybe I won't, and I'm gonna record it from my bed. But they sound organized.
Right.
Like that is what I think is really cool about that. And I just love. She has like a. This is so weird, but with podcasts, I feel like I need to like the sound of their voice.
I mean, that's
or I
if you're
can't
gonna
pay
listen to
attention.
someone, like, they can't be monotone or boring.
Right.
They have to engage you. It's a podcast.
Right.
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 And I just think with, Brittany Broski or Emma Chamberlain, I feel like Gen Z, we kind of grew up on those people. And it's really nice that they have such concise thoughts. Like Brittany.
Yeah.
She just goes on such powerful rants in the best way possible. And just the way she speaks and the words she uses, I think she's really putting Gen Z in a positive light. And I think that's what we need.
Yeah.
Because we get crapped on. Let's just say that.
But yeah, and also we can't really talk about podcasts without mentioning like there's a lot of like political podcasts, and there's a lot of podcasts of not so great opinions that I'm not going to talk about because they're not my opinions to talk about, but I feel like everyone knows what I talk about when I say like certain like alpha podcasts, and there's stuff like that goes on the internet. So like a podcast can literally be about anything, and I think there is like some problematic stuff that goes along with that as well. Like I'm scrolling on my For You page on TikTok, and then I get called like fat and ugly by like 13 different men on a podcast. So that's fun.
I didn't even think about that. I was over here sitting thinking about the positive, but there is a positive side and negative sides to being put in front of a microphone. Like, don't say stupid things. Like,
Right.
I feel, not to be biased, but I feel like all of the female creators that I see, I mean, I just love what they're putting out. But like, some of these men with these podcasts, take the microphone away. Take it away.
Not everyone should be given a microphone unless it's Avery and I.
Exactly.
Then it's fine.
Exactly.
Then we can talk about whatever we want. It doesn't matter. But not.
Do the same thing at home too.
Yeah.
On our couch.
This is just a convo that we would have.
It's girl talk.
A girly talk.
Girly talk.
But yeah, so there's that kind of side of podcast that like literally anyone can have a podcast and it can blow up overnight, especially with like TikTok. I feel like without TikTok it wouldn't be like this, but there are podcasts that I've never heard of that have like millions of listeners,
Right.
and I have no idea, and then I see it on TikTok. Or a podcast like, I like to think about The Basement Yard, if you've ever heard of them. I feel like they blew up randomly because of clips on TikTok. So there's really good aspects of that, because there's some really funny people that I feel like deserve a lot more recognition than they get, and they do get that from like TikTok. But then there's some people that can be like really, triggering in some ways, or just have a lot of negativity to spread. So yeah, there's a duality there.
Absolutely. And kind of like going off that, podcasts are like a recent thing. I feel like I haven't seen them come up until about, 5-ish years ago, if I had to guess. Like it's definitely a relatively new medium, at least in my arsenal of like entertainment that I choose to consume. So
Yeah.
I don't know. When did you start like getting into podcasting or watching podcasts?
So the first time I really kind of even heard about podcasting being a thing was like, I would say H3, like Ethan Klein.
Oh yes,
H3
Trisha
Productions.
Paytas.
Frenemies. I could do a whole episode on Frenemies.
That was a cultural reset.
But that's not important. Podcast, I wasn't really ever interested in it because, I'm like a 12-year-old with like severe ADHD. I can't just sit and listen to some guy talk.
Right.
So, it would be one of those things where I'd fall asleep with my TV on and I'd wake up and it'd be like, there's a 3-hour H3 video playing on my TV and I don't know why. So that was kind of my introduction to it. So I really don't think I had a good like first impression.
Right.
But then I got really into true crime for a while, and I would watch. I wouldn't even consider them podcasts, but in today's definition of a podcast, I would say that's what they are. But
Right.
those YouTubers that just kind of sit in front of the camera and talk about a true crime case, that's really my first introduction to what like a podcast would be. Or Emma Chamberlain was probably the first like podcaster that I would wait for the
Right.
weekly upload, and I'd be like,
Right.
"Just posted."
Exactly. And I feel like I kind of had like the same exposure. Like I drew to visual things, like on YouTube, someone's sitting in front of a camera and talking, but like they called it a podcast, which it is, but it's being recorded. And I feel like I'm really into like listening to interviews, whether that be like about music, movies, like the actors, the musicians. Greta Van Fleet, I listen to some of their radio interviews in the car, but like by the time that hour or 45 minutes is done, I'm like, okay, we're good, thank you. And I turn it to music. Like, I can only take it in small doses, I feel like.
Unless it's the Real Deal podcast.
Exactly.
Then we put them on repeat, and we watch them all the time. And we are deeply enthralled with the Real Deal podcast, as should you.
Mm-hmm. And I think with me and Abby kind of being on this podcast, I mean, now until forever, till the end of time, I feel like this is going to be a regular thing. I feel like we should do this more often.
We have taken over Real Deal. We have actually kidnapped the entirety of the crew.
They're held hostage in the room.
It's just us. Mm-hmm. It's just us. No one else. We set this all up today by ourselves.
Women in STEM.
We had no help.
Yep.
We are Real Deal.
Yeah.
We are changing the Real Deal name to Avery and Abby.
Deal.
The real Avery and Abby. The real Avery and Abby deal.
Yeah.
By us. We're going to be on the main show and the D&D podcast. Mm-hmm. It's just us.
It's a full social media takeover. You know, get used to it.
And that's really what this episode is about. It's not even podcasting. It was just an announcement. Announcement.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So we're going to edit?
We're going to edit that out. I'm just kidding. I'm so sorry.
Podcasting.
What you know about rolling
what
down?
You know about it? But you know what? Even kind of seeing the background of podcasting, like within Real Deal even, it's given me a new appreciation for it. Because I've always had appreciation for like forms of media, but I think not being a media major, I don't really get to see these things, and so this is really fun. I had to plug that again.
Just letting everyone know.
I'm not, and it just makes it interesting. Like Ball State students, if this is a message for anything, get involved into something that is out of your comfort zone.
Like podcasting.
Or Real Deal in general. Come on down. We love to have you.
Has been in Real Deal for a week.
And I'm an advocate. This is my social worker coming out. I'm an advocate.
I'm so sorry. But, you're so sorry.
Off the record. I have not seen a single time thing.
We are really loving this episode. Okay, podcasting.
Okay.
What would you say, who does not have a podcast that you want to see have a podcast?
I feel like I've seen Jeffree Star already. Does he have one?
He's
been
no
on some.
idea.
Jeffree Star has all the tea. If you don't know who Jeffree Star is, look him up on Instagram and or YouTube or TikTok. Interesting person. Love him to death. But he knows the tea about everyone and everything. So
yeah, that's
I would say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Work. And you better work.
Okay. How about you, darling?
I don't know. I should have thought of an answer before asking that question because I knew you would.
Greta Van Fleet.
I was thinking that. Jake Kiska.
That man has so much floating around in his mind. I don't know if he can condense it into like episodes. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't think you can give him a topic, let alone the whole entire band. Let's just be real. They wouldn't be able to stick to a topic. Okay, Real Deal. Plug.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I think musical artists having a podcast would actually be really cool, and they could have episodes where they talk about like they're kind of like a Genius episode.
I think that'd be great. Except the Genius ones are so, no offense, they're so cringe. No, like especially. I'm scared. Like, okay, the Genius episodes to me are cringe. Some of them are good, but like this person sitting on a stool with no background music singing or talking. Some of them don't even sing their songs, they talk it. So that is a little strange to me.
Yeah.
So I feel like something going off of that kind of does an even more deeper dive into their discography, album, single song, whatever. I think that would be more interesting and or beneficial, at least in my mind.
I think that'd be really fun. I don't know.
We're closing.
Got 5 minutes. He has to cut this out.
Again, I'm not a media
Got
major.
Avery's not a media major. I'm trying to think of people I'd really like to see have a podcast, because there's also that thing of like podcasts really blowing up, and it's like everyone wants a podcast.
But like I think that's the fault in it, and kind of like even popular things. Not everybody needs to do it. Not everybody needs to have this platform.
Unless you're us.
Hate to break it to you, but she's right. Not everybody needs to have this platform.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just feel like we've talked about this many nights. Fame is hard to come by realistically now. Like when Taylor Swift was blowing up, she put in that work, she played multiple gigs, she put herself out there, and now look at where she is. But if someone can sing and they post about it on TikTok, it's another day. So I feel like fame's just hard to come by. Mm-hmm. And especially like if you have this new niche and everybody's kind of putting themselves into that category, it's just not. It's not going to be as grand as it once was, or you want it to be, I guess.
Now, another question. What is your opinion on the scale of, like, production value of a podcast? Like, we sort of have, like, a production going on.
Right.
Whereas there are some people who have a podcast where they, like, Emma Chamberlain just sits in her bed and records it. So there's some, like, really casual podcasts in terms of production, and then there's some really, like, high production. Like, we have a set, we have cameras, we have people everywhere. Like, it's a whole thing. So what do you kind of gravitate towards?
I feel like just me, I gravitate towards, like, the more natural setting, just because I feel like I appreciate thoughts more when they're coming from a comfortable environment and or, like, chill environment, but that's not dissing the production value. If you're obviously a part of a club or organization, like, this is how we do things. But I think as a consumer, just going off of what's on social media, I think more relaxed approaches is what I gravitate towards.
Okay, period.
Yeah. How about you?
I think it depends on how the production is done.
Yeah.
So, like, there's some, like, I don't know if you've seen the whole, like, I think it's called Past Your Bedtime podcast.
Yes, I love those.
Where it's, like, Spensois has one,
Drew
has one. Drew.
Wallow.
Hi.
Love her to death.
But, or the one we just watched, I forget her name, but you know what I'm talking about. With Vinny Hacker.
Vanita?
Yeah, and she had Vinny Hacker
Yes. That was a great episode.
That, so sometimes, like, I feel like they don't sell it very well. Like, I can tell they're at a set, but they try to make the set look homey.
Right.
But I can still tell it's a set.
They don't. I feel like it doesn't get as much promotion as the other ones do. Maybe it's because these people are influencers, but they're not as high up as, like, Brittany Broski or Trixie Mattel. Like, I just feel like they don't promote it as, I'm not going to say as well, because they're probably trying their best, but it's just not out there enough. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. But, like, then Zane and Heath's podcast, like, I can tell that's a set, but it looks comfortable.
I think it's homey. In their home, too.
It's like a good set. I like that a lot. And then, like, the Broski Report, it's a set. It's a set on purpose. It's supposed to look like a set.
But it's so custom.
Yes, and I like that a lot. Just got word from our producer that we have 7 minutes left.
Very angrily and passionately.
Shout out to our podcast producer. We got 7 minutes to talk about podcasts. What do you think we could see more of in podcasts that we're not seeing enough that could improve the podcast genre, if you will?
I mean, at least coming from a personal opinion, like I kind of mentioned, my preferences when consuming podcasts, you know, in general, just more relaxed. I see that people try so hard and they kind of fall into a robotic, you know, I don't know, robotic schedule, I guess, because, like, they're like, we need to record this and then talk about this, and so by the book. I just want someone chill, and I feel like we're kind of, like, we're kind of doing that. We're so chill, because we know each other.
That's what I can tell when they bring someone on and they're trying to, like, play it off like they're besties, and they're not.
Right. They cut the cameras and they're out the door.
And they collect their check and they leave.
Exactly.
And you know what? That's fine. Like, everyone needs to get their check, but at the same time, I don't like playing something off like we're best friends when we're not.
Right.
Unless it's me and Avery, we actually hate each other off camera. But I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. But, like, that just kind of, like, fake, like a PR relationship or stuff like that. It doesn't read well. Yeah. And I think the people who come up with those think it reads a lot better than it does. And they're like, we ate that.
Right. So, like, kind of boiling it down to chemistry.
Yeah.
On-screen chemistry or even off screen. I feel like you should kind of have a debrief beforehand to kind of get your thoughts together and set the vibe. Even if you don't know the person, just kind of like do a debrief up front, and then you kind of know more about that person going into it.
Right.
Or just be friends, I guess.
Or just be besties.
Just be best friends.
And we are getting word that we need to wrap it up.
Well, this was so much fun.
I'm being told very violently and angrily, and I'm actually scared for my safety when this stops recording, so
We should leave.
But we're going to wrap it up. Thank you for joining in today with Abby and Avery for the first time. We hope to see you guys again soon. Check us out on the main show, and we will be having our very first segment together, so check it out. And we will see you guys soon.
And take a guess what it is.
Take a guess what
we'll
it's
let you
about.
know next week.
Guess in the comments. Bye.